Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, while I got you here, make sure you're checking out, or I would highly encourage you to check out the entire suite of Eastman's YouTube content. That includes Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. Beyond the Grid is on YouTube. You can also find all of the Wingmen content, obviously, on YouTube, and all of our podcasts. Holy smokes, we have a massive suite of podcasts out there. So we have Eastman's Journal podcast, which is hosted by Ike Eastman. We have Eastman's Elevated, hosted by Brian Barney. We have Eastman's Life of a Bow Hunter, co-hosted by Brian Barney and Dan Picard. That's a tag team one. They talk about all things bow hunting. We have my favorite podcast, the Wingmen podcast, hosted by yours truly, Todd Helms. We have Eastman's Predator Pros, and we have the Western Huntsman podcast, hosted by Jim Huntsman. You can find all those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find all of our gear reviews across all of our properties that we do on YouTube. Those are Wingmen gear reviews, Eastman's Hunting TV gear reviews, and I'm trying to remember what I left out, guys. But my point is, there is a plethora of information and content out there on YouTube for you to check out and enjoy.
This episode's brought to you by Federal Premium. Guys, I've been shooting federal shot shells for a really long time. You know, whenever I had to scratch up money from whatever chores I had to do and jobs I had to do when I was a kid, I always grabbed a box of Federal Premium. It worked for me back then, and it still works for me today. Everything from the TSS heavyweight black cloud loads to the traditional black cloud loads to the blue box speed shock and now the new heavy bismuth loads. Federal's got a load out there for your price point, your budget, and your level of performance that you're looking for. So, be like me, reach for Federal. That is my unashamed opinion.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the great folks at Weatherby and Federal Premium and High Mountain Seasonings and Leupold and Kryptek. Thank you for being partners with us, guys, and I would highly encourage any of you looking for some great gear to go out and give those folks a hard look. All right, that said, let's jump right into it. Man, you guys have been absolutely awesome on communication, feedback, comments on the podcast on both Instagram, Facebook, and the podcast feeds, the RSS feeds. And I'm going to take this opportunity to just kind of run down through some of the comments and questions that we've gotten and give you guys kind of a hunt update where we are. You know, we're on the precipice of Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays of the season. There's so much hunting to do around that holiday, and so it's so awesome to sit back with friends and family and kind of take stock after a full year and look back and go, man, I am so thankful for my health and my family's health and all the things that the good Lord has blessed me with. I've always loved Thanksgiving ever since I was a kid. I just feel like it's the perfect time to have an attitude of gratitude and get some great hunting in, whether it's bird hunts for waterfowl or pheasants, your late season rough grouse hunts, or, you know, a lot of deer seasons are going on this time of year as well. And that was always a big thing in my family. So before I jump into going through some of the comments and answering some of the questions that we've received in the past few weeks, I'm going to give you guys a hunt update and a kind of a flyway update from what I'm seeing and some of the stuff that we have been doing here at Wingmen, and just kind of prime the pump, tell you what we've got coming up. First and foremost, the first hunt video from last season has dropped. It's on YouTube. It is airing on Outdoor America app, which I believe now is changing to Field and Stream TV, if I remember correctly. that might not be public information yet. Anyway, the Outdoor America app, anybody that has a Samsung TV, that app is available to you. You can download it on your mobile devices as well. You can see every season of the Wingmen video series, and we're uploading our podcasts there as well. So when you're doing stuff around the house and you want to have something playing in the background, man, fire up the podcast on Outdoor America and check that out. Those are available up there. And if you want to sit down and watch some hunts from the last few years, it's all there for the viewing. But I would highly encourage you to check out last year's hunt. We just dropped it. It was a really cool hunt. It was fairly early in the year, but it was really cold. And we had an experience last year that I've never, ever had before in the field. We had 4 swans go ripping past, make a big loop, and come and land right in the decoys. It was duck and goose season, so I had a mixed spread out of ducks and Canada geese. And, man, those swans bombed right in there and landed right in the spread. And you can see that on video. Super cool experience. We can't hunt swans here in Wyoming. I wish we could, but we can't. I'd have to go to Utah or Montana or North Dakota. Those are the closest places that I can do it here. And I just have kind of been lazy, I guess, and haven't applied for those tags. If you guys want to see us do that, film a swan hunt, let us know. Leave us a comment on this and be like, yeah, go film a swan hunt. I want to see that. And we'll try to make it happen in maybe next year or the coming years. But so for what I'm seeing right now, kind of a flyway report, we have a few birds down. We got some cold weather, pushed some birds into the area, and I think that goes kind of across the board for the Rocky Mountain front. But we're not froze up yet. It hasn't been cold enough to freeze still water, so our waterfowl are very spread out. There's a few birds flying up and down the river in some of the spots that I enjoy hunting. Field hunts these last few weeks have been tough, guys. With the big moon and bright nights we had last week, the birds were feeding almost exclusively at night. I spent a lot of time out scouting and trying to pin down a field for a dryland hunt, and just really couldn't do it. Birds would be circling, the last couple minutes of shooting light, if at all, during the daylight. And then out in the mornings, birds were moving back to their loafs and roosts at daylight for about an hour after daylight. And that was the activity that we saw. The rest of the time, birds were loafing during the day. They'd get up and trade around a little bit, but for the most part, they were just loafing. A lot of sleeping, resting birds, doing a little bit of feeding on their loafs as well, but a lot of nighttime activity. Since that beaver moon has disappeared and gone away, I have seen the bird activity during the mornings and evenings pick up, but the weather has been so nice that those birds are still doing a lot of nocturnal feeding. We need some snow. We need some nasty weather, some cold temps to push those birds to be more accessible during legal shooting hours. That said, talking to a couple outfitter buddies locally, they're smashing them. They're doing really, really well on water sets, and they are getting some field action as well. But the peak of our migration isn't anywhere close. The peak of our migration is majority of our birds are still up north in Canada and in Montana and in North Dakota. I did a North Dakota podcast a little while ago. I've been chatting with my buddies over there, and they said, man, it's really, really good right now. South Dakota hunting is really, really good right now if you have a tag. But that's about as far south as the majority of the birds have gone. Talking to my friends on the Front Range in Colorado, they have birds. They're primarily focusing on ducks in wetland settings right now because they don't have a ton of geese yet. And it's the same here where we are, and up north of us in Montana, we don't have a lot of geese yet. The weather's been really mild in the Central Flyway and across the plains, and we haven't seen a big push of birds that we will see when we get some weather up north. So that's kind of a flyway update. As far as hunts go, I got to be honest, I've been focusing on filling deer tags, guys. We have a short season locally in our unit, in our part of the state of Wyoming. I spent a lot of time in the fall in the mountains, as much time as I could in the mountains, helping other folks and trying to find a bull elk or a deer for myself, and it just didn't pan out for me. So I spent the last 10 days, well, that closed. Our season closed on Monday, the 10th. And so I spent those first 10 days in November really trying to tip over some deer for the freezer, and had some success. My wife shot a nice buck with our kids by her side, and I was able to take a really nice buck the second to the last evening of season. And so that's wrapped up. I got some doe tags and some cow elk tags to fill. I know this is a waterfowl and wing shooting podcast, but that's kind of where we're at. I slipped out and hunted some pheasants the other morning, and it was tough. All of our corn is still up in our area, and so the pheasant hunting is kind of tricky. Hunting thick cover in the middle of the day and right at daylight, and again in the evening as those birds kind of transition out of those standing cornfields back to their roosts and their resting areas in the thick stuff and the ditches, the grassy ditches. Lots of birds on the pheasant front this year. All my buddies are doing really well on them, having a great time. I've been really enjoying, I know I made a couple social posts about it, but I've really been enjoying carrying the Weatherby Orion over and under matte version of the 20 gauge. Man, the older I get, the more I like a really light, handy, quick gun. And the 12 is light and quick too, but the 20 is just that much lighter and quicker. And, shooting the Federal Prairie Storm out of it, I like the 6s, 2 3/4 inch load, and it just hammers birds. I really don't see much disadvantage to shooting the 20 over the 12. And the advantages of having a really light, quick shotgun are really, really nice. So I've been enjoying doing that. I'm super excited. My dad is here for quite a bit of time, planning on getting out and doing some waterfowl hunts with him in the coming weeks. And I'm headed to North Dakota this weekend to chase roosters with a good friend of mine. I'm stoked about that. Apparently we've got some great ground to hunt. I've personally never hunted this particular spot, but I know there's a lot of birds there, and it's been very lightly hunted. So I'm very excited to put Hondo on the ground, and I'm going to continue to put those crispy boots that I reviewed, the Crispy Uplander Pro boots. You guys can find that gear review on the Wingmen YouTube channel. I'm excited to put those through the paces a little bit more than I could this summer when I was testing them. I'm super impressed with the boot, but I'm excited to put them through the paces even more as this season progresses and some upland opportunities present themselves. The Chucker and Hun situation here in our neck of the woods in Wyoming, we have birds, but we do not have the ridiculously high numbers of birds that we had the last 2 seasons. Last year in particular, I don't know, we had a great hatch and we had tons and tons and tons of birds. And this year, I'm not exactly sure what happened, if it was the wet spring or what it was, but I'm not seeing the Chuckers and Huns that I did last year. We have birds. They are definitely out there on public lands and ready and waiting to be hunted, guys. So that's another opportunity that I'm looking forward to doing. I have to be honest, and I have to side with on the upland bird front for Chuckers and Huns, man. I have to side with the pointing dog guys. I'm successful hunting with my Labradors on those birds, but I definitely think I would get more opportunities with a pointing dog. I'm looking at adding a pointing dog to the kennel. But right now, at the stage I'm at in life, I'm kind of maxed out with Hondo and his son, Rooster. Rooster's training is continuing to progress. Short daylight hours have us focusing on 99% obedience with a little bit of retrieving work thrown in the mix. He's coming along great. I'm really excited. I'm not going to hunt him this year. He'll probably tag along on a few hunts, but I'm not gonna hunt him at all. Gonna see how he progresses through next summer, and God willing, we'll be looking to put him into the field next fall. Because he'll be over a year, be about a year and a half old next fall. And if I feel like he's ready, we'll hunt him a little bit. But we're still leaning on Hondo, the seasoned vet. Man, he's really come into his own. His training is phenomenal. He doesn't miss much, guys, and I'm super excited to put more time in the field with him this fall, starting this weekend with some pheasant work as well. We've done a little bit of duck hunting, as I said in the last podcast, or maybe the one before that, gave you an update. And it's go time. It's go time here. Big game seasons are over and winding down, and it is go time to hunt ducks and geese and pheasants and chuckers and huns here in my neck of the West. So super stoked about all of that. Going to continue to try to get my daughters on birds. We've been working on mounting the gun. We've been working on sighting down the barrel and working on the adage of bead, bird, bang, trying to keep their heads down. And that dovetails into a split out that hit social media from a podcast I did, a while back, where I was talking about peeking, raising your head up when you shoot. And I'm scrolling down through here and I'm trying to find that snippet because, man, you guys left some amazing comments on that podcast. Right here it is. There's 46 comments on the Facebook post. I'm going to pull up and I'm just going to read some of these. Basically, in a nutshell, if you missed that episode, I was talking about ways that we all miss birds, and I'm as guilty of this as the next guy. 9 times out of 10, I think I said in that previous podcast that when we're missing birds, it has a lot to do with gun mount and cheek weld. I know personally, if I'm missing birds, I'm usually peeking. I'm picking up my head, and that results in stopping the gun, not following through, results in shooting high and behind the bird. And I've seen that with my girls on that very first hunt we did. They get everything lined up, and then they pick their head up because, as one of the comments in the Facebook post said, we all like to admire our work. But when we pick our heads up, that work doesn't turn out very well usually. So some of the comments that you guys had, I'm just going to go down through these. Brian says, shot cam is a great tool and will humble and help you at the same time. It's helped me on the not swinging through and following through. I haven't personally used a shot cam. We used Tacticams for a while on our shotguns. And man, Brian, I couldn't agree more. When you're actually able to go back and watch your misses and hits, it is a very, very powerful tool. From the videos I've seen of the shot cam, I really like the little red dot in there that shows you exactly what you're doing wrong. And man, the camera doesn't lie. And I tell you what, if you guys can if you're struggling, maybe investing in a Tacticam or a shot cam would be a great way to help diagnose some problems. And so you can get out on the skeet and trap range or sporting clays course and do some practicing, work on those things. And we're in the heat of the season right now. Things are ramping up, getting going. I know my southern brothers are, their seasons don't open till like Thanksgiving. Man, having something to be able to play back if you're struggling is really, really helpful. So that's a great tip, Brian. Thank you. Jeff says, yes, nothing more fun than trying to admire your work. The worst part about lifting your head to admire your work is that you get away with it just often enough that you continue doing it. Oh man, that's true. Well, I would say that Jeff's pretty correct there. I don't get away with it very often. When I pick my head up, I miss. I'm usually stopping the gun when I'm doing that. My sight picture changes and I miss. But every now and then, yep, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, and it's creating those. Once you create those bad habits, man, they're hard to break. So anyway, that's really interesting. Let's see. Phil says, bingo, catch myself doing this all the time. And then I go to the skeet range and do not shoot doubles. Practice on keeping my head down in my follow-through. Great tips. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, practice, practice, practice. And I would add a caveat to that. It's not just practice, practice, practice. You know, we hear the old saying, practice makes perfect. Well, I always disagreed with that when I was a coach. I added that perfect practice makes perfect, because if you're just practicing all the old things and you're not addressing the situation, you're not fixing the problems, then you're just practicing bad habits. So perfect practice makes perfect. That's great, Phil. Michael says, 9 times out of 10, when someone is giving advice on shooting, they're looking in the mirror and describing themselves. Man, that's why I said it, Michael. That is so true. And I've said it before. I make no bones about it. I'm not the world's greatest shooter. I do take pride in the fact that I tend to hit more than I miss, but I still miss, guys. And when I'm giving shooting advice, I'm usually self-diagnosing for sure. That's one of those things where if it's on my mind, it's because I'm struggling with it. And so that please don't take it as, I'm God's gift to wing shooters and I'm out here preaching at you. That's not it at all. Usually it's because I've identified a weakness in myself, whether it's shooting or dog training or being a father or, whatever it might be in life. Usually when I'm talking about it, it's because I see that weakness in myself and I think, if I'm struggling with it, I bet other people are as well. So that's a good one. Let's see. Phil says, me, when shooting quail, I shoot head up, both eyes open. Sharp snap shooting works for me. Kill many a quail when there was quail. Man, that's an interesting one that Phil brings up, because I think back to growing up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and learning how to shoot rough grouse and woodcock, and it was exactly what Phil's talking about. There wasn't a lot of swing through. It was point and shoot, snap, just bang. And you just had to bring that gun up, and everything had to be instinctive, and it just pops up, boom, your sight picture, and you shoot. And you don't have time to think about lead or swing through. You're just shooting because the cover's really tight, birds are really quick. And that, I feel like, because I grew up doing that, when I remember making the transition to pheasants, when I had roosters flush right at my feet and everything was quick, I was wicked. In fact, a lot of times I still do this. My reflexes have slowed down as I've gotten into my late 40s, but I'd shoot too quick and I was blowing birds up at close range because they'd flush close and it was a snapshot, bang, and let them get out there a little bit. But that can mess with your head too. If you're letting a bird, I've missed more birds, guys, when they flush close and I'm like, okay, and I take my time, mount the gun and shoot. My brain has time to engage then, and the wheels start turning and I overthink the situation and I shoot behind the bird or I peek or whatever that might be. If bird flushes really close, I do try to pause for a second and let them get some distance out there and then just snap the gun up and shoot. Don't think about it. Wait, snap, bang, and shoot, because those old instincts from growing up shooting grouse and woodcock in the tight cover do take over. It's the same with ducks. I don't mount the gun and swing through and process the situation. I know that works for some guys, whether they're using the swing through method or the sustained lead method of shotgun shooting. I know that works for some folks. My brain just screws it up 9 times out of 10. When I have to think too much, I miss. And so in a situation like that, bird flushes or I have ducks come ripping in, I snap shoot still. And so that's really, really interesting advice there, Phil, and I tend to align with that. Let's see. Wood to wood, says Tim. Keep the wood on the wood. That's a really good one. Anyway, guys, those are just some comments from that particular post on Facebook. You guys blew that up, man, and I really appreciate that. There's 46 comments on that Facebook post. It's a little short snippet of the podcast I did on keeping your head down on the gun and kind of some hunt updates. That's a really good one. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate all the support there. Back to hunting solo on highly pressured pheasants. This one, holy smokes, you guys had a lot to say about this one. Basically, what I was talking about is keeping a dog close and quiet, whether it's at heel or working really, really close. That's something that I trained Hondo to do from early on. My old dog, Mackinac, he had a lot of bad habits because I had a lot of bad habits, and he had a tendency to get way too far out. And once he got out there, he was really hard to get back. And so Hondo is a different animal. He's a little less headstrong than I shouldn't say headstrong. He's less independent than Mackinac was, and he wants to be close to me. He wants to keep track of me and check in. So teaching him to hunt within 10 to 15 yards of me was pretty simple. But there are times when I'm hunting by myself in the pheasant fields on birds that have, a couple weeks into the season now, birds that are tight. I will be walking what I feel like is the best cover, and I'm doing it very quietly. I'm barely communicating with the dog, and I'm basically sneaking up on those roosters. A lot of roosters will run. As soon as they know you're in the field, the bulk of roosters that survive run. Hens will hold. We all know that. I don't care whether you're running a flusher or a pointer. A lot of your flushes during the late season are hens. Those roosters are wily. The ones that hide a lot of times get shot real quick early in the season if you have a good dog. But I found that by keeping the dog at check really close and we hunt quiet, I shoot way more roosters. And yeah, the pointing dog guys lit me up on this one, and that's okay. We all have our preferred methods of hunting. I don't own a pointing dog currently. I'd like to. I really would. It's just not in the cards for me at the moment. And so I hunt with what I have. And I feel like my labs are very successful bird finders. In fact, I can remember several instances of hunting spots in South Dakota over the years where 15 dudes would go through a stretch of CRP or a crop field with CRP on the edges or an island of a grass or swale in the middle of the field. They'd go through it. You'd watch them go through, and, most of the time they're running big running setters or big running pointers or GSPs, and, yeah, they'd shoot some birds, but I had no qualms about going in 30 minutes after they left, 45 minutes after they left, sometimes an hour, going and getting some lunch and then coming back and hitting the exact same cover they did, because I felt like we still killed a lot of birds. I still killed a lot of birds going in behind guys, especially early in the season. Late in the season was different. Hunting in November, December, birds are a lot smarter, and once they vacate, they're gone. But, man, early in the season, dogs are jacked up, guys are jacked up, and I feel like I'm going to make people mad with this comment, especially the pointing dog guys. I feel like a lot of them hunt way too fast. The dogs hunt too fast. They cover a ton of ground. I feel like they overrun birds. I've always felt this way. And I've hunted with some amazing pointing dogs, guys. Amazing pointing dogs. And there's nothing as beautiful as watching a good bird dog slam on point. And whatever you're hunting, whether it's a rooster, pheasant, or rough grouse, or woodcock, or sharptail, or huns, or chuckers, there's just something magical about that point, and I get it. But I've seen a lot of guys rip through hunting spots. They go fast. They don't pause. They don't hunt it. They sweep it. And the dogs were ripping through it. They shoot some birds. They get some points. They move in. But, man, I've made a living in South Dakota over the years going into small pieces of cover after other guys have hunted it. Usually it's thick. Thick cover is the key here. Usually thick grass, swales, sloughs, and coming out with a bird to sometimes my entire limit when I bring my slow, methodical, close-working Labrador in there and just let them tear every inch of ground apart. Guys will tell you that a lab doesn't have the same nose, the same scenting abilities as a bird dog, as a pointing dog. That may be true. I don't know. I just know that I've done pretty well hunting pieces of cover after other people in places like South Dakota, back in Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula, in Iowa, even out here. Birds will hide. They'll go hide and they'll hunker down in that stuff. And usually, if you see guys flush, a bunch of birds out of a spot, there's usually some that didn't flush too. And man, a real slow working a real slow, close working flushing dog like my labs, like Hondo, man, they ferret out those hidden birds. And multiple times I've had that happen. In high school, I had a really good friend that ran beagles, and he was a diehard rabbit hunter. But man, we shot a ton of grouse in December and pheasants in December over his beagle. A slow dog, brush buster, getting in there, trying to root stuff out. And that dog had a game nose, man, and it would flush birds just as much as it liked to run rabbits. So I just think about that. I know a lot of guys over the years that, they'll throw a beagle down in a cornfield and just let them run around and bay in there and flush roosters, and it worked. And so we all have our preferred methods of hunting birds. Like I said, I'm not knocking the pointing dog guys. I love pointing dogs. I love watching them work. I agree. That's the reason you have a pointing dog, is watching that dog just course and then lock down and pin birds and do all the things that they're bred to do and the good ones are trained to do. But, at the stage of life I'm at, I don't have room for another dog in my house right now. And the bulk of what I enjoy doing is waterfowl hunting. I love to hunt upland birds as well, but waterfowl gets the nod 9 times out of 10. And so a Labrador works best for me. And I've had a lot of success shooting upland birds over Labradors. So anyway, these comments, here we go. Labs are for ducks. Spent most of my life watching people hunt wild birds with retrievers, wondering what the fun in it was. Get yourself a bird dog. Touche, man. That's fine. Like I said, opinions are like elbows, man. We've all got a couple of them, and they can all be abrasive, but just is what it is. To each his own. I agree. I want a bird dog. I'd love to have a little Brittany or an English pointer. It's just not in the cards for me right now at the moment. There's 21 replies to that comment. Let's check those out. These are interesting. I have owned short hairs my whole life and a couple of pointers. If I'm going for production pheasant hunting, trying to get limits, I leave them at home and hunt behind a flusher. But there's nothing better than a big rooster off a beautiful point. Man, I think that sums it up. It's kind of what I was getting at. Just over the years, I've had more success on pheasants. I've had more success hunting behind thorough, methodical, close-working flushing dogs, primarily Labradors. I like to hunt the thick stuff, and so do those dogs. But, man, there is something about a point that's, it's great. Isaac says, my lab will out-hunt and out-point your overhyped bird dog and go get a duck that sailed 150 yards on the water. Labs aren't just for ducks. Again, we're Isaac, I appreciate the passion right there. That's one of the cool things about social media, guys, is we can all have conversations. I kind of view it as like a hunting camp, guys sitting around talking, sometimes just being dudes, and getting into nitty-gritty conversations. But we do have to be careful about being kind to each other. And we see that across social media, whether it's hunting or whether it's politics. Everybody's got their opinions, like I said. Let's see. Josh says, I've used labs my whole life for pheasant and never had issues. Training them to not go past 20 yards is not complicated, and they're still easily within range. A lab getting birdie is the same response as a pointer on point. That's a really good point, Josh. No pun intended there. I love watching my labs get birdie, man. That tail starts whipping. They get super intense, and it's exciting. It's super exciting. It's not as picturesque as that pointing dog all posed up and locked down, but it's just as exciting in my opinion. Let's see. Tyler says, I've got 2 labs that I would choose over any pointer I've ever hunted with. Pat says, hunting late season last year and watched four pointers flushing them way out ahead because those birds weren't holding in December. Pat, that is a really, really good point. And guys, like I said, I'm not trying to stir the pot. I just found all these comments really interesting and kind of thought that you guys might as well. When it comes to that late season, man, when I was in college, we used to go to South Dakota in December because the crowds were gone. Everybody pretty much finished up for the season. Landowners that normally charge fees were willing to just let you go hunt. They knew that the hunting was hard. They'd gotten their money from hunters earlier in the season, and they didn't care. Their crops were out of the fields. They didn't really care. It was amazing how much success I had just door knocking back in those days. I haven't done it in a really long time. I don't know if that's still the case, but, man, we had a lot of fun going out there, living on the cheap, hunting birds, door knocking, and getting permission to hunt stuff. I very seldom got told no in December in South Dakota. Again, I don't know if it's still that way or not. I know a leasing game has changed a lot of things, but, man, the bird behavior, I'll never forget this one spot. We pulled into this yard, and it was surrounded by a shelter belt, and there was a giant grass slough that ran down the middle of a harvested cornfield, stubble field. The stubble had been left pretty long, so there was obviously quite a bit of food there, but it was bitter cold, really windy. We pulled in the yard, and there had to have been 500 pheasants around that farmstead. I mean, it looked like chickens. They were just all over the place. And we were hunting, so we had our hunting clothes on. We looked like hunters, and we got out of the truck, and probably 25% of those birds flushed and flew down into the slough when we got out of the truck. The rest of them got nervous and kind of started running around. We went up to the door, knocked. Farmer's wife came to the door and said, absolutely, you guys can hunt. Just please be careful of the cows. Please be careful of the buildings. So, cool. We walked back out to the truck. Another 25% flushed, flew into the slough. And we're starting to dude, we're getting kind of nervous here. We're watching all these birds fly away. By the time we got our guns out, and the lady said we could hunt right there in the farmyard, we could start there. So that was the plan. By the time we got everything ready and got the dogs out, all of the birds were gone. They had all flushed or ran down into the grass, into the slough. We got looking at it, we thought, oh, this is going to be great, man. They're all in thick cover. They're going to hold. We're going to have a bomber day. So I believe it was my dad took the truck around and parked it at the end of the slough on the county road, and another guy picked him up. And no, didn't pick him up. He stayed there as a blocker. 2 guys stayed there to block. It kind of got down in the ditch on the property, but turned the truck on, left the truck running with the radio on and the windows down to block those birds. And it worked, kind of, but holy smokes, man. We started working that thick cover, and it was cattails and grass. And we shot a couple of birds out of that, but the bulk of the birds were busting out the sides hundreds of yards ahead of the guys that were running the sides of the slough. And we were in the middle. We had 3 labs in the middle, working up the middle, 4 or 5 guys. And we were flushing all kinds of birds, but they were 200 yards ahead of us. The guys on the ends ended up killing some birds. I think a couple guys in the middle got a bird, and then the blockers on the end got a couple. It was pretty successful, but when we looked at the number of birds that were flushing, squirting out the sides, and, we had the guys in the middle, and then we advanced the 2 flankers, so they were ahead a little bit and still safe, trying to box those birds in a little bit, and man alive. And, of course, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of hooting and hollering going on, communicating with the dogs. Dogs are making a ton of noise. And I just kind of realized at that point, man, these birds are better hunted with stealth than force. And so we split up into smaller groups after that, like 2-3 guys together, and we were real quiet, and we started hunting smaller cover. smaller sloughs and little windbreaks and things, we started killing way more birds. Kept the dogs really tight and close, and we were quiet. We weren't yelling and shouting back and forth. We weren't yelling rooster. We were kind of sneaking on these birds, and our success rate skyrocketed. And I have to think that it was primarily because we were being quiet and we were taking our time in these spots, slowed down, didn't do the death march, and you take a few steps and stop and pause. Give those birds a chance to lose track of you and kind of get nervous, the birds that are trying to hide, and let your dog that's keeping really close, inside of 20 yards, rip apart that close cover. And, man, we had some success doing that. That was a perfect scenario where a flushing dog was key. The couple of guys brought their GSPs, and they hunted the edges of everything, but they weren't willing to get in that thick stuff and bust brush like our Labradors were. So I guess having multiple tools, multiple tactics on these late season roosters, it just pays dividends. If you only know how to hunt one way, well, I don't care whether it's with a flushing dog or whether it's with a pointing dog, you're going to miss opportunities at birds. And having a diverse skill set and lots of tools in the bag is really, really important on these birds. Anyway, lots of comments here. Ace says, so true, Todd. I learned this as a college student in Iowa. We didn't have a dog then and tried to push birds to one another. The best results were when we were quiet and walked 10 to 15 yards and stopped, then changed direction on an angle, then back the other way, kind of a zigzag pattern. Any sound from the blockers and the birds busted out the sides. If they were quiet, the birds flushed right to them. That's probably the mistake we made on that first hunt in South Dakota years ago, is we thought leaving the radio going on the truck would pin birds, and it didn't. It just squirted them out the sides. And so after that, whenever we used the truck to help block, and we used blockers, everybody was dead quiet. Talked to some locals years ago that used to wear, when there was snow on the ground, they'd wear snow camo and be really, really still. I know that I don't go that far with snow camo, but I try to get close to something to break up my human outline, whether it's a tree or a bush or stand of cattails, sometimes even a fence post, maybe take a knee and get low. Those highly pressured birds in states like South Dakota that see a lot of hunting pressure, they're smart and they can pick you out. A duck can spot you from hundreds of yards, so can a pheasant, and they will squirt out the sides. They will fly far from you. And just being sneaky, I think it just kills more birds. Jay says, be quiet and have a hunting dog that works close and is under control should be what you do all the time. Don't need to be at heel, just under control should do the job. Agreed, very much. Jordan says, in my experience, late season high pressure birds need a dog capable of covering ground fast. Birds either run or flush wild. Dogs have to pin the bird down between the hunters and his escape route. As a hunter, you have to be on your horse because birds will not sit long. Quail will sit, hens will sit, roosters will not sit. Roosters get up in that Kansas wind and are gone. That's a solid point, and it goes back into we all have our preferred methods. A big running pointing dog that can get out and get in front of stuff and pin it between you and the dog is, I've seen it work. And it's a thing of beauty when it does. I don't know, guys. I love it. I love this stuff. I love the interaction on social media. Again, it's just fun. This is one of the things I just love about what I do, because I get to come on here and talk about my perspectives and things that I've noticed, and then put it out there and let you guys comment on it and just see the wealth of knowledge and experiences and opinions that are out there. And I feel like if we're paying attention and we're not taking things personally, we have so much to learn from each other. We're on the same team. We're hunters. We're on the same team as the guys running mountain lions with hounds. We're on the same team as the beagle guys. We're on the same team as the big game hunters, the guys that are trophy hunting big game. We all know trophy hunting is conservation because it's selective harvest. We're on the same team with them, just like we're on the same team with the guys out trying to put a cow elk in the freezer, the meat guys. we're all in this fight together. And I can't stress that enough. And that's one of the things that's cool about that I like about social media is it's just this wealth of guys that love the same stuff. Not just guys, sorry, folks, people that love the same stuff. We're passionate about this. We love this. We love the outdoors. We love hunting. And we have to remember to be kind. We have to remember to take things with a grain of salt. When you go into a Facebook comment section or you go into a podcast comment section, man, check your ego at the door and see what you can learn. And 9 times out of 10, you'll come away from those comments learning something, or at least if you go in with an open mind, getting some ideas or having maybe a uncovering of something you hadn't thought about. That's how I try to look at it. Again, I really appreciate the engagement, guys. It helps us bring you great content. It helps us grow and continue to bring you videos and more podcasts and all that great stuff. So keep commenting, keep sharing these posts, keep giving us ratings and likes and follows. It just helps us bring you awesome content. I love it. You guys are great. Thank you so much. I'm thankful every day, back to that attitude of gratitude. I thank God every single day for what I get to do. Growing up, I never saw myself doing this. I never saw myself sitting in front of a camera talking to thousands of listeners. I never saw myself writing articles. I never saw myself hosting a video series, being an editor of a giant Western big game hunting publication. I never envisioned any of this, and God has led me down this path, and I'm doing my best to steward and use the skills that he's given me. And I love bringing you guys content. And when you engage and interact like that, it just lets me know I'm like, I like this, man. This is fun. I'm blessed. I'm so blessed to get to do this. It's just that attitude of gratitude. So I don't care how you hunt. As long as it's ethical and legal, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your buddies. Get your dogs out there, whether they're pointing dogs, whether they're Labradors or Springer Spaniels, or maybe you run Beagles or Cocker Spaniels or a Boykin. It's just we're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. And at the end of the day, that's what really counts. We can disagree on the best way to hunt late season roosters or the best way to set a duck spread or call ducks or not call ducks or jump shoot. Man, at the end of the day, we're hunters. We're hunters. And we are stewards of the resource. And keeping that in mind that we're all on the same team and that it's okay to have differing opinions. It's okay to, argue from time to time. We're all on the same team. And, I'm not going to belabor that point anymore. I wanted to take an opportunity to get on and give you guys a flyway update and a hunt update, some of the things that we've got coming up, some of the things that I've noticed going on around here, and talk about some of the comments that you guys have generated and the thousands of views that you guys have generated, especially on Facebook. Man, you guys have blown it up. I would highly encourage you that if you're on Instagram, go check out Wingmen, and you can find it at Wingmen USA, and check out our content that's on there. Right now, we're hovering at about 10,000, a little over 10,000 followers. Man, it'd be super cool if you guys went on and followed Wingmen on Instagram and left your comments on there. I'd love to see that channel blow up and, to 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 followers. It would be really, really cool. But I'm very thankful for the Facebook audience, the dedicated podcast audience, our YouTube audience. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you for being so engaged. And, if I could leave you with another thought, I guess, man, as we head into Thanksgiving, kick back, take a moment, maybe pour a glass of bourbon or smoke a cigar or just sit and reflect on everything that you have and everything we have as Americans and that we get to enjoy. If you don't separate yourself from that 24/7 news cycle, it's easy to get discouraged these days. But man, there's a lot of good stuff going on in our country. And I am so thankful every single day that I get to, that I was born an American and I get to live where I live and do what I love. Wouldn't be the case necessarily if I wasn't fortunate and blessed enough to be born an American. So take a minute, hug your family, hug your friends, tell people you love them and you're thankful for them, and just sit back and enjoy these next few days, these next few weeks, heading into the Christmas season and the new year. Man, it's the best time of year if you're a bird shooter, guys. The ducks and geese are flying. Pheasants are out there. Seasons are open. The weather's cooler. It's an awesome time to heal up a dog, get in the field, and just enjoy God's creation. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that. Happy Thanksgiving. Again, thank you for all you do for us. And a huge shout out again to all of our partners. Can't thank Weatherby, Federal Premium, Leupold Optics, High Mountain Seasonings, and Kryptek enough, guys. They make it possible for us to bring you content like this. And I would highly encourage you as you head into the Christmas season, if you're looking for gifts for hunters in your life, check out the products that these folks make. I've been fans of all of those companies since before I started doing this. And I believe in their products. I believe in the shotguns. I believe in the shot shells. I believe in the seasoning kits. I believe in the optics, and I believe in the camouflage and the gear. Guys, it all is great stuff, top-tier stuff, and you're going to enjoy it. So check those vendors out. Thank you to all those companies. And guys, until next time, we'll see you in the field.